Dalton takes a shotgun snap. Quick throw. Caught by Green. It is a touchdown! Adriel Jeremiah Green.
You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati.
Hello and welcome to episode 98 of CinciNatter, the Bengals UK podcast that is ready, is primed, is on the edge of its seat, is ready to go. Yes, we are mere days away from the 2020 NFL season. I still can't believe it. And I don't think anybody else can, especially, it's been a long year, hasn't it? Everything has been going on. It's been quite distressing and stressful in many different ways. But it's days away. It's mere days away, Nathan Palmer, isn't it?
It is indeed, my son. And I think both of us were quite sceptical as whether the season would go ahead about a month or 6 weeks ago. And here we are. With, like you said, mere days to go until the Bengals open the season against I was going to say San Diego Chargers, but the Los Angeles Chargers to kick things off. So here we go.
Indeedy. How exciting. Are you pumped, Nathan? Are you pumping?
Yes, I am pumping. No, I can't wait, mate. I'm absolutely buzzing now. Like, I've got some food lined up for Sunday. I've got me. It's a late game, isn't it? Which is actually quite tasty because, naturally, you're gonna sort of have a few beers and watch the 6 o'clock games, get some food in. So it's going to be a big old session on Sunday, really. Like, seeing it through from sort of 5:30 all the way through until about what our game will probably finish about
half 12. Yeah.
It's going to be a bit of a tasty old Sunday, I would say.
Have you got the Menabrea in?
Oh, mate, I haven't. But I'm going to go out.
You're going to get a crate full, aren't you?
The local co-op needs to be fully prepared for my arrival.
There's going to be a full-on Palmer onslaught. He's going to be waving his cash around like loads of money in the Harry Enfield comedy character. He's coming for co-op. He's coming for your Menabrea and your vegetarian meat products. And sour cream and nachos.
It's all about the nachos, mate. It's all about the nachos. That's what I've got fully lined up. Like, I'm a nachos connoisseur, mate. Honestly,
I'd call you more of a fiend than a connoisseur. I've seen you.
I'll take
snaffle into those nachos like you were some sort of pig diving into a trough full of oats. You are fully in there. You've got sauce running down your mouth, and you don't care. You turn into an animal.
You're not wrong, my son. You're not wrong at all.
Well, let's. I'm looking for. I want to see you post a picture of juice all over your chin on Sunday evening, because that says to. I tell you, two things that mean football season to me. Right, is the night's drawing in slightly, but the day is still mild and very pleasant, and then seeing Nathan Palmer with juice all over his chin. I want to see fruity juice all over his lips and face.
Oh, mate.
That's when I know football season's really here. Anyway, we digress, as ever. There's a shock. It seems like a lot has happened since last week, Nathan, doesn't it?
Mate, the wheels are rolling at a minute, aren't they? I mean, during the off-season, me and you were scraping the barrel at times, and now it's like we're barely able to get it all in one episode. It's a bit of an onslaught at the moment.
And make no bones about it, this will be an onslaught of an episode. It might be quite long, actually, because it is our annual season preview episode. A bit later on, we've got Geoff Hobson coming up, Uncle Geoff. He'll be back, making his 6th appearance on the podcast. He's got lots of good stuff to say. We've got predictions from a bunch of Bengals fans from across the UK, so you'll hear them. Lots of correspondence, and then me and Nathan talking nonsense. So what more could you want in the lead up to the season? Honestly, I don't know what more you could want.
I mean, there's a lot of season previews out there from a lot of other, reputable journalists and other fans. But realistically, this is where the real preview is, isn't there? There's not many other if you're gonna listen to one season preview, this has got to be it. If you ask me.
Exactly. Right, where should we start? Let's just quickly skim over the news that happened last week, shall we? So here we go. Joe Mixon signed a 4-year extension worth, off the top of my head, $48 million. What else? Yes, Austin Calitro was traded to the Denver Broncos, and in return we received defensive tackle Christian Covington.
Christian Covington.
Oh no, I haven't finished yet. Shut up. Stanley Morgan was cut, and then put on the practice squad. What else? Who else was cut? I can't remember. There were lots of things going on last week. Remind me, Nathan. Come on.
I don't know. Something that's about it, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, that's probably about it actually. Bobby Hart is still on the team. Can you believe that?
No. Well, I think we all knew it, didn't we? The Bengals love a bit of Bobby, but Christian Covington is literally that is the most solid of solid handles. It is literally like a Boston-based detective, isn't he? Christian Covington, just sort of purveying the streets of Boston, like rolling about, and he's like big trench coat, just solving crimes in the 1960s.
Absolutely.
What a name that is.
Oh yeah, we picked up Shaquille Calhoun as well from the Dolphins. We used our top waiver hit with for another ex-Miami Dolphin player, an offensive lineman. Alex Redmond was cut as well. It's still going on. It's all coming back to me, Nathan. Alex Redmond was cut. Shaq Calhoun. You moaned about the names last week. What more of a solid handle can you get than Shaq Calhoun? He sounds like someone out of a Western, like a saloon owner in a Western film.
The juices are flying at your end, son, aren't they? Your balls have swollen up and it's all coming out.
Oh, dearie me. Well, anyway, so basically a lot happened last week. Anything that particularly caught your eye? Talking about solid, though, not only has he got a solid handle, he's massive. Christian Covington, have you seen the size of his arms? They're like, I don't know, the size of Bournemouth.
Size of an Eddie Stobart lorry.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. He's enormous. He's enormous, gentleman. Of course, we needed some depth on that defensive line, so Calitro's gone, which means our old pal, our old chum, our old mucker, Marcus Bailey, has made the 53, which is tremendous news, I think.
Yeah, I think of all the sort of camp battles, that was one that was an interesting one to watch, because Calitro, I think he was picked up as with our number one waiver priority, and a lot of people thought with his experience he might make the team, but obviously Bailey proved his spot, and we take a very young, inexperienced but very exciting linebackers corp going into this season. So watch this space.
Yeah, a bit of a question mark over that linebacking core, I think, really, just because of the youth and the inexperience.
It's high risk, high reward, isn't it? I mean, they've really gambled on it. It's been a bit of an issue for us for a while, the linebackers. They've gone with the youth. They've gone with the sort of the risky but youthful approach. And a lot of these guys, Akeem Davis-Gaither, Logan Wilson, obviously Marcus Bailey, Jermaine Pratt's only going into his second year. So it's a very thin group in terms of experience. Obviously, you have Josh Bynes, who's been around the block a bit, but they're going to be put to work, I think.
Absolutely. Let's just go through the 53, shall we? And these are the lads that are going into battle for us this season. We've got Hakeem Adeniji, Mackenzie Alexander, Geno Atkins, Marcus Bailey, Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Giovanni Bernard, Tyler Boyd, Andrew Brown, Tony Brown, Randy Bullock. It sounds a bit like the conveyor belt in the Generation game, this, isn't it? I'm going to ask you if you can recite all these back to me in a moment, Nathan. Joe Burrow, Josh Bynes, Shaq Calhoun. That's such a solid handle, that is. Sethan Carter, Christian Covington, Mike Daniels, Paul Daniels, no, not really. Akeem Davis-Gaither, Carlos Dunlap, Alex Erickson, Jordan Evans was retained, Ryan Finley, AJ Green, Clark Harris, the legend that is Clark Harris, Bobby Hart, T. Higgins, Trey Hopkins, Sam Old Mother Hubbard, Kevin Huber, William Jackson III, Fred Johnson, Michael Jordan, Khalid Kareem, Carl Lawson, Torrey McTire, who was re-signed yesterday after Trey Waynes was officially put on IR, Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine, Darius Phillips, Jermaine Pratt, Billy Price, DJ Reader, John Ross, Drew Sample, LaShawn Sims, Xavier Suafilo, Auden Tate, Mike Thomas, CJ Uzomah, Jonah Williams, Sean Williams, Travion Williams, Brandon Wilson and Logan Wilson. On the IR list is the aforementioned Trey Waynes and Renell Wren. The practice squad is looking like this. Freedom Akinmuladon.
Solid handle.
It really is a solid handle. Brandon Allen, Amani Bledsoe, Kendall Futrell.
Solid handle.
Travion Henderson, Trenton Irwin, who looks like I don't know what he looks like. Some sort of heavy metal dude. Josh Nipfel, Khalil McKenzie, Stanley Morgan, Jaquez Patrick, Winston Rose.
Solid handle.
Mason Schreck, Scotty Washington, and Mitchell Wilcox. So they are your Bengals for 2020.
I can't believe you've just read out every man on the roster and every man on the practice squad, my son. It's a commitment right there.
Absolutely. And there were some very solid handles there, weren't there? Which was the solidest? Did you like the Freedom Akinmuladon?
I think Freedom's got to be top three. I think Christian Covington is a top three.
You're happy with that, aren't you? You're happy with
I'm happy with Christian Covington.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so there are guys going into the season. Obviously,
just on that subject, my son. Sorry to cut your beautiful voice off mid-sentence there. I know you'll hate me for that.
Cut away.
But
go on.
Obviously, a big topic there is that Jake Dolegala is not on that practice squad, is he? I didn't hear his name.
No, that's right.
Bit of a shock there, isn't it? So they've only gone with two quarterbacks, which I think most people were slightly surprised about, especially considering the inexperience there, with Burrow obviously being a rookie and Ryan Finley going into his second year. Brandon Allen, who has started some games in the NFL, put on the practice squad because he's eligible for that one. And then obviously Dolegala, a lot of people I think had some high hopes for, has just fallen by the wayside. So obviously can't have had a fantastic camp. But very surprising to me anyway that the Bengals didn't have some interest, be it to get him after waivers or during waivers, to get Josh Rosen as some, obviously with a high ceiling there, low contract, to stuff him on the roster as sort of a third quarterback, just to have some potential there. I mean, the one thing about Rosen that stood out to me, he's younger than Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
And I thought that was crazy. He's 2 months younger than Joe Burrow. And for me to have a roster of three very, very young guys in Finley, Burrow, and Josh Rosen, all on very, very efficient, not too expensive contracts, would have been quite a nice concept to have. But alas, the Bengals felt that they had enough in Finley. And I think that speaks testaments to Finley. I know a lot of people were really down on him last year, but that was an awful situation. And I felt bad for him. And I hope that if he does get his chance, hopefully he doesn't get a chance this season because Burrow will be healthy and playing well. But if he does, that he plays well, because I still think that he's got some potential.
Well, he did show potential in the pre-season last year, didn't he? He looked pretty good, but then looked a real rabbit in the headlights, didn't he? Although a few good moments, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we're going to discuss Josh Rosen with Geoff a little bit later. But I tell you what, before we talk about Joe Mixon, let's go to our first fan prediction segment.
Hi, this is Adam at Touchdown Tips on Twitter, a long-time Bengals fan and looking forward to the season ahead. Obviously, I'm looking forward to Mr. Joe Burrow, the number one overall pick, kicking ass this year with the wonderful offense that we've got. AJ Green hopefully back fit, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, etc, etc. I am thinking we're probably going to get 6 or 7 wins, anything between 4 and 8, and frankly I'll be happy with 6 or 7. It's an incredibly tough schedule, so fingers crossed it'll all go well. Hoo day!
Hello, I'm Peter Dadswell, or Dadders on Twitter. Predicting anything in the current climate is a forlorn task. Frankly, I'm just delighted we've got football back. However, if I'm going to make one prediction, is that the Bengals will be so much better this year. That's largely because of Joe Burrow, who brings optimism and positivity to the team. If everything clicks, that offense could be elite. And don't sleep on the defense, which has been strengthened in so many areas and looks so exciting. Score prediction? Well, 5 wins I'm happy with. 6 or 7 will be a really good season. Anything more than that, and what a positive start to this rebuild. Who dey?
Hi, it's Danny, standing and reflecting in my kitchen making family dinner. So I'd first like to say a giant hooday to my fellow Bengals fans. In years past it would have been fellow Bengals sufferers, but I think, like most of us, it's something we feel really positive about this season with Joe Burrow and all. What I want from this season though is really just for us to be super competitive within our division, and I especially want us to take 2 games off that noisy bunch from Northern Ohio. My prediction is still a modest 5 to 6 wins, which is significant improvement on last season. But even with that, I'm totally amped for this season. I can't wait for the first week to start and us take on the LA Chargers. And as Nathan would say, cheers guys!
Hi guys, Dom here at Bumbling Bengal on Twitter, and let me tell you, I cannot wait for Joey Boy to absolutely rip the Steelers a new one Monday Night Football, or Tuesday morning over here. It's going to be a great show. As for records, let's say 8-8, much better than the league reckons. Yeah, a bit optimistic, but oh well. Who dey?
So there you go. In that first segment, you heard Adam at Touchdown Tips, and you heard Pete Dadswell at Dadders, and you heard Danny at DZE, and you heard Dom at Bumbling Bengals. So thanks to those guys, and all fairly sensible predictions. Okay, let's talk about, again, before we get to the a bit of predictions, let's talk about Mixon. 4 years at $48 million, I believe. And I kind of balked at that when I first saw it. I thought, goodness me, that's sort of $12 million a year for 4 years. That's a lot for a running back. Anything can happen in those 4 years. But then I saw the breakdown and I was a lot more comfortable with the deal. And actually, I think it's a good deal for both sides. I think there's a $10 million signing bonus and it's $8 million a year for the first 2 years. Then a shade over 9 in the third, and then a shade over 9 in the fourth. But there are options to get out of that deal as and when. So the Bengals have structured it quite nicely, I think, and it really has given a shot in the arm to a lot of Bengals fans, because, like it or not, Mixon is a real fan favourite.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for Mixon, if you'd said to the fans who don't have a checkbook and are not too concerned with the Bengals' bank balance, they're just concerned with how they play on the field, I think 95%, 98% of Bengals fans would have wanted them to retain Joe Mixon and sign him up for the long haul. And I think that, for me, I don't think it's necessarily the best business deals to be paying big money to a running back. But at the end of the day, it gives Joe Burrow some security and some help with a proven player. The guys in the locker room seem to value Mixon quite highly. A lot of fans like him. It's a popular move, which I think the Bengals are looking to really sort of galvanise their fans and give the fans some good, player to support. And I think with Mixon being popular, you've obviously got Joe Burrow in there now. That offense is quite young. It's quite dynamic. It's, the fans are warming very much to it. So, if it prevent AJ Green signing a long-term deal? Quite possibly. Are the Bengals going to look back on it in 2 or 3 years and potentially regret it? Quite possibly. But I think for the short term, for going into this season, it keeps Mixon happy. It avoids any issue relating to a holdout or him being, a distraction because he's not happy that he's not getting paid or he gets injured or anything like that. So I think for the short term, I think it's a smart move short term. But whether or not, if it was my business and I was the one doing the numbers behind the scenes, I'd be doing that. I'm not quite so sure. But fair play to Mixon, and I really hope that he can play to a very high standard while we're competitive this season.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree with all that, actually. I do think we're going to be getting him at his peak, in terms of age and production, which is great. He seems to really like the club, and the front office seem to really like him. And what was lovely, I think, about this whole thing was that really nice photograph that he tweeted out with, I think there was Paul Brown there, and there was Katie Blackburn. I think it was Elizabeth Blackburn as well. The Bengals get knocked, always quite weirdly, in my opinion, about being a family-run organisation and this mom-and-pop business, whatever the hell that is. But I've always thought that, what's the problem with that? What is the problem with that, being a family-run club who value their employees, see them as human beings? And, I'm lucky enough to have been to Paul Brown Stadium a few times and been in the bowels of Paul Brown Stadium just the once. And there is a family atmosphere there. And I'm sure that's the same in most other clubs as well. But it really strikes you that it's a friendly club, but it's just they don't, they just get on with their business. And for them to get knocked for that, I'm not quite sure why. But anyway, that's another conversation entirely. But yeah, I thought that photograph was lovely. There seems to be a good bond between player and club and vice versa. And also, just on the field, what's going to be of interest to me is obviously Mixon has had two back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, yeah.
So, you want him to produce at least that every year and some added production in the passing game. Hopefully they can scheme that up and get him in space and get the ball to him, whether it be running the ball or passing the ball. I'm interested to see what the offensive line are going to do, because after changing their scheme, I think it was around the Rams game last year, things improved dramatically. So I'm really interested to see what they're going to go with their kind of blocking scheme, because there was an obvious, as I say, improvement at the end of last year, and Mixon was really, really productive. So a few interesting things, but certainly the fan base, that just really pumped up the fan base. And I think we have had a good off season, and that just really was the cherry on the cake, really. So let's hope he doesn't, get injured like a lot of Bengals players seem to do as soon as either they get a contract or get drafted number 1 or whatever in the first round. The pieces are in place, and I think that they seem to be in a good spot and a good frame of mind going into the season opener, which is great. There are no outstanding issues particularly. It seems like a really cohesive, together kind of camp, which I like the look of. Obviously, there are sort of slight worries about certain areas of the team, but certainly it's as settled as you want it to be, and certainly during these crazy times, going into the opening game as it possibly can be, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me with Joe Mixon, just to sort of finalise that, say the last word on it, I want to see him play well when we're playing well, because the last couple of seasons have been diabolical. And at the start of last season, when we needed him to play well, we needed to get off to a good start, he didn't play well. And for about the first 4, 5 or 6 games, I remember I had that bet with Sam Ainger about whether he'd get 1,500 yards all purpose. And I'd won that bet after about 7 weeks, because he didn't do hardly anything for 7 weeks and we were out of the running. A lot of his yards came at the end of last season when they were kind of like garbage games. We were playing Ryan Finley. We were basically giving him everything because he was healthy. He was getting an enormous amount of carries, and he very much padded his stats and took the opportunity. And he played very well. There's no doubt about that. He's a very talented running back. He played well. He earned his stripes. But I want to see him play well at the start of this season. He's got his contract. We've got some potential there on offense. Touch wood, unless anything crazy happens this week, we're going to have a healthy team going into week 1 in terms of those offensive starters. Green should be out there. John Ross should be out there. Joe Mixon's going to be out there. Joe Boy Burrow's going to be out there. I mean, it's an exciting prospect. That line is pretty much as it should be. There's no chopping and changing there. It's the starting line is going to be lining up on the field. And Joe Mixon needs to play well. And I don't doubt there's a good chance he will, but I really want him to play well, get us off to a good start, and show that talent off when it matters, rather than in meaningless games when we're 0-12 or 2-14 or whatever we are. So that's what I want to see from Joe Mixon. I want to see him use more in the passing game as well, because if he is this talented, we need to be getting the ball to him, and I hope that him and Joe Burrow can build up that chemistry quite quickly. So yeah, it's a big investment for the Bengals, and I think it's an even bigger investment and probably signifies the end of Giovanni Bernard, considering that the Bengals are paying an enormous amount of money, I think second in the league to their top 2 running backs. So Giovanni Bernard's in the top 15 running backs in the league in terms of what he earns, which is quite remarkable considering his production levels last year. So, the Bengals have gambled big on the running backs, and I hope the two of them combined, both Gio and Joe Mixon, can have big years to sort of take some of that pressure off of Joe Boy.
I don't disagree with that, but I will defend Mixon a little bit, because I think the whole of the offense struggled at the start of last season. They couldn't, obviously their offensive line was completely decimated by injury. The blocking scheme wasn't working. Nothing was coming off for anyone. Dalton was playing poorly. Everything just seemed out of sync. So I think that's in Mixon's defence. But yes, you want to see him be a crucial part of the team as it's kind of winning, really. But I think all in all, it's a good deal for him, and it's a good deal for the club as well. Right, let's have some more Bengals fan predictions.
Ken Davis from Derby here. Bengals are going 7-9 this season, and I'll be really happy with that. 5 games better than last season, and next season it'll be 5 games better again. The player I want to give a special mention to, number 46, Clark Harris, the long snapper. But he's not any old long snapper. It's his 12th season on the roster. He's had 1,559 consecutive playable snaps. He was the world record holder for the longest snap, and is the oldest Bengal on the roster. There are long snappers, but there's only one massive alligator, and that's Clark Harris. Who dey?
Hi Bengals UK, this is Martin Greer. Really looking forward to seeing our rookies and free agents this season. Can see us starting off 6-6, then finishing strong for a 9-7 record. Hopefully that gets us a playoff berth, then it's game on. Who dey?
Hello to Who Day UK, congratulations on your first show tonight. The thing I'm looking forward to this season is Mixon, seeing more runs, and also seeing him catching more out of the backfield and just generally really helping Burrow through his first season as a Bengal. In terms of record, I'm thinking about 6-10, probably on the lower side because of where we are just right now with our cornerbacks. But generally really looking forward to seeing some football at last, and yeah. Go Bengals. Who dey?
Well, there we go. And in that little area, you had Ken Davies, Martin Greer, Matt Moon. And thank you to those guys for sending their predictions over. I mean, at the start of our prediction, I think when the roster came out, we went through it. We were not going to do that again. But has anything kind of changed for you? Because I don't think it has for me, actually. it's still around a 7-9-ish sort of record, maybe a bit, maybe 6-10, maybe 8-8, something, around that 7-9 kind of area, I think. It is interesting to see how. I mean, you read about the Eagles who we're playing at some point. They're decimated by injuries, apparently. You hear about the Steelers, who are looking like $1 million apparently in training camp. Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball as well as he has done in a decade, apparently. And then, of course, our opponents next week. Derwin James has gone out with a season-ending injury. So you get all these other little kind of developing narratives and factors that could feed into your either optimism or negativism. What are you thinking, Nathan? Have you seen any? Well, but first of all, in terms of going into the season with the roster that we've got, do you think your initial prediction has changed at all?
No, I don't think so. I think I had us down for about 7-9. I still think that's probably accurate. ESPN actually did a fantastic piece today, simulating the entire season, every single game.
I saw that.
With this huge, massive computer, and it spat the Bengals out at 7-9. And I went through the games and looked at some of the results. They seemed fair, and I think at one point it had us at 6-6. And I think really, if that was to happen, and we were 6-6, and we were looking quite smart, we'd had some good wins, we'd put some points up, I think most Bengals fans would take that this season. And I think Peter Dadswell said it really well yesterday on the live broadcast on Twitter, that last year wasn't a rebuilding year. This is the first rebuilding year. Last year was a bit of I don't think the Bengals knew if they were coming or going last year. It was all put together very last minute. They were not really too sure if they were actually trying to win or they were trying to rebuild. And it was a really odd sort of period, a bit of a wasted season ultimately. But this year is a full rebuild. We've got a very exciting player in Joe Burrow. I think the roster's been constructed really well this offseason. They've made some smart moves. They've brought in some really, really good players. They've cut off some dead wood as well. And I think, not to sound negative, but I think 7 wins is almost a bit optimistic considering we won, 2 games last year. So it's a fair old jump. You've got a lot of rookies. We've not had a preseason. We've got a lot of free agents that have come in. I think the ceiling for us this year, and I just could not conceive it would ever be possible, would be 9 wins. I just can't see, unless something outrageous happens and Joe Burrow is just an absolute Trojan horse out there, just smashing people over, and we stay completely healthy, and Zach Taylor as just, is coach of the year, that we win more than 9 games. But anything 7 or more for me would be a massive achievement, and it would be a strong sort of flag in the ground moment for us moving forward as a franchise, with young players on both sides of the ball, some very solid veterans, and obviously a franchise quarterback of the future. So I'm sticking with 7-9. I'd be happy with 7-9. I think the ceiling is 9-7, and unfortunately, I think the floor is probably, again, 2 wins. I still think there's a possibility, as much as no one wants to talk about it, that Zach Taylor might not be the right guy. I hope he is, but he might not be. And there's a lot of question marks still there. That offensive line is a question mark. Those cornerbacks, you've got a couple of guys there that if they were to get hurt, we'd be in real trouble. The linebackers, they're all rookies. They could be good. They sound good. Every draft pick looks good on tape with a few YouTube videos and a few interviews. But once they're out there on the pitch, are they going to be exposed by some of these quality tight ends and running backs and wide receivers? So I still think that, as positive as we all are, and I think every team around the league, their fans are amped up, they're excited, they think they could win games, they think they could go to the playoffs. But there is still a reality, as horrible as that sounds, where we could be shit again. So,
yeah,
but I think,
I absolutely agree.
Going straight down the middle.
I do agree with you, actually, because I think that training camp and around this sort of time is one of the best times to be an NFL fan of a team, because
I agree.
All you're seeing basically is players make plays, whoever they might be, back of the roster guys or your stars or whoever, on the practice field, and it's so easy to get carried away by that, because you live in this Bengals bubble and everything is super positive. Oh, that 7th round receiver is making tiptoe catches on the sideline, and this undrafted free agent running back from the CFL is like barreling for 90-yard touchdown. Do you know what I mean? It's all brilliant.
100%.
It's all brilliant. And then of course you come up against a team like the Browns with Myles Garrett steaming off the edge, the Chargers with Bosa and Ingram steaming off the edge, and then you suddenly realise that actually, maybe we're not so good after all. But I'm hoping, we will be better, and I think this is what fans want. We want to see improvement. We want to see competitiveness in every game, and we're playing some bloody good teams this year. Houston, the Titans. We're playing Philadelphia. We're playing Dallas, who I think might go to the Super Bowl, actually, which pains me to say because I hate the Cowboys. So if we can see an improvement, if we can start to see the offense clicking with all our impressive-looking skill players, and then, of course, it's down to the defense to show a really big improvement. But it's exciting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think it's going to be mad this first game of the season because we've not seen a Bengals game since 2019. And the back end of last year was just a bit of a mess because obviously, a lot of people wanted us to lose those games so we could secure Joe Burrow, and we've not seen the full capability of this team apart from some very, sort of radio style scrimmage reports from the Cincinnati media, and we also haven't seen anything of the Chargers. So it is going to be a complete guesswork, really, as to what's going to play out on Sunday. I mean, it's a crazy prospect, and I think that there's going to be some very bizarre results around the league. And I think that, do you know what? It's going to come down across the league to how well the coaches have been able to prepare the players during the off-season, because with no preseason, and every team's obviously got rookies coming in, free agents coming in, and are transitioning in some proportion. And I think the best coaches are going to be the ones that teams come out firing on all cylinders. So it's a big test for Zach Taylor, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a big test for Zach. It's a big test for the players, and I've said it before on this podcast, it is the team who has adapted the best to all these kind of Zoom meetings and restricted practices and all the rest of it. So it's going to be very interesting, which is why, and throughout the season, there will no doubt be players who will test positive for COVID. So what happens if it is your star quarterback that gets tested positive on the Wednesday before a game? He's going to have to sit that game out. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some surprises throughout this season. So who knows what they'll be. But why can't one of those teams be us? We've certainly got talent. Let's hope it all comes together. Anyway,
what do you think, Ask? Just quickly, son, I answer my own question. What would you give us as our sort of floor and ceiling, realistically?
Floor 5-11. Ceiling 9-7.
Yeah,
I think. So I mean, that's quite a big grey area there. But again, it's so difficult to predict this season, and it's so difficult to predict our team as well. A, because of the COVID situation, everything that's brought with it, and B, because we've got a ton of new players as well. So we'll see. Right, let's bring Geoff in. Well, as promised, it's a return. I think this is his 6th time on CinciNatter. It's Uncle Geoff Hobson, live from Cincinnati. Geoff, how you doing?
Great to see you guys. Great to see you and Nate. And thanks an awful lot for having me on. It means a lot. Hope everyone's doing well over there.
Yeah, likewise. How is it over there? I mean, we've been talking on the podcast for weeks now that, God, how are they going to get an NFL season going? But we are only a week to go, and it's an amazing turnaround, really, isn't it?
It's really weird, but it's also, Paul Brown Stadium might be the safest place in Hamilton County. You know, we get tested every day. People do what they're supposed to do. They wear masks. They stay 6 feet apart. You know, the administrative folks like myself, we don't have meetings. Everything is remote. I haven't talked to a player one-on-one since, probably talked to Burrow at the Combine. He still doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know me from Thomas Hobson. I'm Hobson's Choice, the original Hobson's Choice.
Right. So we're edging towards the first game next week, and we always try and get you on around this time because you're very good at predictions, and obviously this is the weekend of roster cuts, and we're recording this on Sunday afternoon, so the Bengals still might be in play for a few waiver pickups, who knows today. But yeah, first impressions of roster cuts day, any big surprises for you?
No, I thought it went, you know how they when they do the NCAA tournament, if the favorites win, they call it chalk because of the formations, and it went right. They cut the way I think they cut the way everybody thought they were going to cut. The thing is, Paul, no preseason games. They've been on the field less than 3 weeks, and they have a scrimmage where there's no refs, and they're not live. So I got no idea what they're going to look like on the 13th. Literally, I don't think anybody does in the league. It's kind of an amazing thing. I mean, they look great on paper, but I don't know if anything's changed. I don't know if anything's changed since June 1st.
But you must obviously watch them as much as the next media person and being in the building as well. And is there no sense of whether? I mean, because obviously on paper they've had a really good off season, right?
I will say this. I will say, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I will say this. I think the people they brought in here have been as advertised on the field, right? Burrow's the real deal.
Right.
The linebackers run like hell. The linebackers are fast. The free agent veterans they picked up on defense, Von Bell, terrific leader, changes the defense. DJ Reader, great leader, changes the defense. Josh Bynes, the linebackers have gravitated toward him like, little chicks. So that has worked out. That's why they got Bynes, to be a mentor. So I would say in that sense, AJ looks like AJ. I mean, they kind of backed him off after he had that first little thing. And I think they just threw up their hands and said, he'll be able to play. So I guess that's kind of a question. Is he going to be in sync? But I think they'll be all right there. But yeah, so I would say what's taken place in the last 3 weeks has kind of reinforced what they were hoping.
Geoff, on the subject of like roster cuts and waiver claims and stuff like that, were you surprised that the Bengals said they weren't interested in Josh Rosen? Did you think there might be some interest there to sort of be QB2, or do you think Ryan Finley's looked quite good?
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't take a look at Rosen, just because of how many quarterbacks are picked in the top 10, and 2 years later, they're available. And clearly he's not going to be the starter. Burrow's the guy, as AJ said, Burrow's the guy for the next 15 years. So he's not going to be and maybe they thought that was a bad fit. For whatever reason, people have thought Rosen's kind of a little bit, not a great personality. He always says he has the ability to say the wrong thing. And I really do think they're taking the chemistry thing, the locker room chemistry thing into, I think they're holding that more in account than they have in past years. I think that's why they were very aggressive in signing Mixon. And, maybe a guy like Rosen, they just didn't think it would, and maybe he thought let Burrow be the unquestioned guy. He's the guy. Don't bring in any kind of a sideshow, which I think Rosen would have been. So it did kind of surprise me, but then after I thought about it, maybe not.
What do you think about Mixon, Geoff? The fans are pretty overjoyed. He's a real fan favourite. Yeah. He's obviously well liked within the building. What are your thoughts on Mixon being extended? Because there are some people that kind of say, well, the running back is, the value of signing a running back to that kind of contract is a risk. But yeah, I mean, I think the fans are overjoyed for the most part.
Yeah, I think my colleague over at the Athletic, Paul Daner, posed the question that it was a risk, and I think it was a risk not to sign him. At some point, you've got to keep your best players. He's your best player. He was been their MVP the last 2 years with AJ out. I think he's even more important now with Burrow. I mean, you can't go into this thing, especially in the kind of environment they've been in. You can't go in throwing the thing 40 times a game, 30 times a game. You have to ease him in. I don't care if he's the next Manning. You know, Mixon's the perfect guy to do that. He's a big kid that can carry the ball. He wants to carry the ball. He's a type A guy. I think it would have been a gamble not to. It would have been a risk not to sign him, not only because of just trying to protect Burrow and run the ball, but also in the locker room. Again, I think it would send him not a good message to the locker room because he is such a guy who's, I think, highly regarded among his teammates. So, and I I wrote, there are just some things that analytics can't take into account. You can't measure what a guy means to a team. Intangible. I'll tell you, I saw, you guys remember the thing in Atlanta. He didn't play against the Falcons in 2018, and when AJ caught that ball with 7 seconds left, like jumping on a grenade, and Mixon was the first guy in the end zone. It's a good thing they didn't get a flag. He didn't play that game. He was in his street clothes, and he was in there diving on AJ and celebrating. That means something, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Geoff, we've talked, obviously, like, we can't not talk about Joe Burrow. I know we've mentioned him briefly, and you said he's as advertised. He looks like the real deal. What have you seen of him so far in the live scrimmages and in practice? Has it impressed you? Like, what have you seen so far?
Yeah, I think what's impressed me, Nate, is when things break down, and things do break down in scrimmages, so you can get a sense there. Got a real good feel in the pocket. Very natural back there. He can step to the side. And that's something, and I love Andy, but that's something that Andy never really struck me as being comfortable back there. I mean, he's a fine quarterback, but Burrow just seems to be able to sidestep, take a step or two to the side and find an arm angle to get rid of the thing. Very cool back there, and he can make something out of nothing. I think he's very good. We taught this was a topic one day when that first scrimmage, in the red zone, he was very productive in the red zone, and a lot of that stuff is it breaks down and you're trying to find it's a broken play, and he excelled on that at LSU, and I think he's got people that he can excel with here. Tyler Boyd comes to mind as a guy who doesn't mind breaking off routes and making himself available. So that stuff I like, Nate. I like that pocket presence and the ability to make something happen when the play breaks down.
Now, obviously, Burrow's one thing. The additions on defense we've kind of spoken about is another thing. What kind of potential, what excites you about this team? Because I think, again, a lot of fans are quite excited about the skill positions. We seem to have a good wide receiver group, quite deep as well. What kind of? Do you think that this is the season that Zach really is able to put his stamp on the team?
Yeah, that's right. I think from a chemistry standpoint, kind of a locker room standpoint, I mean, they haven't been together long, but I think, like I talked about, guys like Bell, guys like Bynes and Reeder, they give that. I'm kind of excited to see what the defense does because that's got, as you know, you've been watching this team for the last 3 years, and they haven't been able to stop the run. They just haven't been able to tackle. They haven't been able to get anybody to the ground. And I think it's salty. I think this defense is saltier than it has been in the past because of the addition of those guys, all very highly rated against the run. So that excites me, along with just Burrow being flat out who he is, not only as a player but as a guy. I thought he'd be very high profile during the last weekend when they took a stand on social justice, when they made the march to the Underground Railroad Freedom Center. And, great statement. They wanted Joe there to read it with Trey Hopkins wrote it, the center. He's an African-American. He read the first paragraph. Joe, white guy, read the second graph. Mike Brown, the owner, standing behind him. Very impressive. And I think they reached out to Joe to be that active. He was very vocal on Twitter about, how wanted to see his African American teammates treated right, and looking for justice for everyone. And so that was pretty impressive too. What he's done on the field and matching that with, I think, the regard he has that the teammates have for him as a leader. Exciting to me.
Just a quick question about the activism side of things. Obviously, the things that are happening on the streets in the US are pretty horrendous at the moment. But it seems to me that, the whole Black Lives Matter movement and, as you say, the statement last week and the conversations that the team and coaches have had together, it feels like it's a real coming together moment, a real bonding moment for the team. Have you felt that?
I have felt that, and I think a big part of it is, you get some veterans here who have come of age, Giovanni Bernard, CJ Uzama. They've seen the transition that this team's undergone, and during the off season, they've stepped up. Trey Hopkins, the man who wrote the release, the statement, the mission statement, and then you bring in a guy like Burrow, who's, let's face it, a galvanizing figure. I mean, right at the beginning with his Heisman Trophy speech, when he talked about the poverty long before the pandemic, it was December of 2019, and he talked about the impoverished conditions of where he grew up and what he saw in Athens County. And, 32 words or whatever it was, it sparked $600,000 got raised in for the food bank, for the local food bank. So off Facebook pledges. So, obviously he brings something to the table other than talent. And, you combine that, with the guys in the locker room who've been around the league a little bit, like Gio and CJ, and I think it has been a bonding. I think it has been a bonding type situation, and they have said that. The guys have said that. CJ and I think Trey has said it too. This is about as close as team as since they've been here.
Geoff, obviously it's a much younger Bengals team than we've seen in the past. A lot of rookies. I think every rookie made the team this year, which is fantastic. But are there any guys, sort of younger guys on the team that you think, like someone that you've potentially seen that you think's primed for like a big year this year, like someone that's really caught your eye?
Yeah, I think it's funny you mentioned that. I was thinking about that, Nate. Only one vested veteran got cut though. That was Brandon Allen, the quarterback. All the other guys had 3 years or less of experience, which was, usually they cut more veterans. But you're right, it's still it's still a young club because, Burrow makes it young, and they've made so many changes on defense. But Michael Jordan is a guy, I think a young guy, the left guard. He was one of he might have been the most improved player in camp. A guy like Jermaine Pratt, a second-year guy. He's had a pretty good camp. He looks more comfortable than he was the third-round pick from last year. I'm interested to see Darius Phillips. I think he's going to play a lot. And, he had 4 interceptions and 75 passing plays. That's a pretty good percentage, that translates to about 15 picks. Now, obviously, he won't, but he shows a penchant for catching the ball. So those are 3 or 4 guys that I think would be on the verge of doing something. Pratt, Jordan, and Phillips. And you look at a guy like the left tackle, Jonah Williams, who hasn't even taken a snap yet. Yeah. Maybe the biggest question of the year.
How about Drew Sample? Have you seen much of him? Because obviously a second-round pick himself. Like, he's someone that I think the Bengals could really use with sort of taking a step forward to give a bit of competition to Uzama and to give Joe Burrow a nice threat over the middle. What have you seen of him so far?
I should have mentioned him, Nate. That's a good point because he's had a really good camp. They drafted him to be a blocker. And he came back. He redid his body. He and Sam Hubbard. That kind of became is now in training camp lore. I guess Drew turned his garage into kind of a gym, and he and Hubbard were kind of bonded over there. But Drew remade his body, and he's a good blocker. But he really shows good hands, and he made some pretty impressive catches during during some of the scrimmages and during some of the red zone stuff. But, I'm starting to think Burrow could make me look good if I went going over the middle. He's one of those guys that can just, he'll if you're there, he'll find you, and but Sample is, you're right. He's a guy, and it may, push him. Me, I'm always pulling for the 2 tight end set in a run game. I think no team in the league used 3 receivers and 1 tight end more than the Bengals did last year. Well, that's a puzzle now, because now you get 2 pretty good tight ends in CJ and Sample. So what are they going to do? And you get all those talented wide receivers. So, I think, like Zach says, it's just every game's a different matchup, every series a different matchup, and I guess the key is to have that versatile, to be able to counter something with something, and you need 2 tight ends and 3 receivers at different points during the game. And I think Zach feels more comfortable. I think after a year he'll feel more comfortable calling the game. I think he knows his personnel better.
What about the defense, Geoff? We talk about different personnel groupings for the offensive side of the ball. What about the defensive side of the ball? It looks as though Lou is trying to be a bit more flexible. Yeah. Perhaps, we've seen Dunlap and Hubbard sort of rush off the edge almost as outside backers and drop back into coverage more. What are you expecting in terms of defensive scheme?
Yeah, I think it's more of a 34 now. They were afraid to say it, but I think now after, last half of the year and what we've seen in camp, I guess you'd have to say it is a 34. I don't know. Carlos and Sam are 2 of your best sackers, so I don't know how often you want to drop them in the coverage, but it's certainly something he's toying with. And it'll be interesting to see how they use the speed. To me, the defense kind of hinges on what they do in the middle of the field with the linebackers, because we really don't know. Al Golden, the new linebackers coach, has really shuffled those guys around. You really don't know. He's basically Pratt and Bynes seem to be his guys because they're veterans, but there's really been with Wilson and the 3rd-round pick and Davis Gaither, the 4th-round pick, and Bailey, the 7th-round pick. He's got them running through there in different spots and different situations, and so I'd like to, I kind of like to see what happens. I think that the scheme is probably pretty much going to be the same. I think with more speed that allows Lou to do more things. I think Bell is a good blitzer who they picked up from the strong safety from New Orleans. And I think Wilson has been was a good blitzer in college. So I don't know. That's another thing about this year. They are on purpose. They're not saying much because there's nothing on tape. The other teams have nothing on tape about what they're going to do this year. And with the Bengals having a lot of new personnel on defense, they're going to have as many as 5 new starters. They feel like, they can maybe pop something on the Chargers. It's going to, who knows what they're going to do. Blitz more, blitz less. I don't know. More 5-man line. They've done a good job keeping things under the, keeping things close to the vest.
Okay, Geoff, let's put you on the spot. I think we both predicted a 7-9 season. Again, it's almost impossible to predict this season, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah.
We don't know what other teams look like. We don't really know what the Bengals look like. There's going to be
fans. Are there going to be? Are there going to be fans on November 25th or not? You know what I mean?
It's all over the place, isn't it? But using all your experience and wisdom, what
conversation?
Yeah, what are you going for?
Well, I'm going to go, and I think I wrote this the other day. I'm going to go. The closest thing we got to it is 2011, right, when there was no spring ball, and the rookies were actually in worse shape then than they were now because they couldn't talk to the coaches. They couldn't look at the playbook. They couldn't really do anything. So these guys are more prepared that way. So I'm going to compare it to 2011. Okay, Burrow, because he's the number 1 pick, he's better than Andy. Right? Okay. Mixon's better than Benson. Younger, better, I think. A.J. Green, as a veteran, is better than A.J. Green, a rookie. Tyler Boyd is better than Andre Caldwell. John Ross and T. Higgins are going to be better than Jerome Simpson. They'll be more productive than Simpson's 50 catches. Then on defense, the defense hasn't been together as much, but there's probably more talent on this defense than there was on that Zimmer defense, who basically worked miracles with guys, with basically two good corners.
Chris Crocker.
Right. So if they won 9 games with Dalton and that crew, they can win 9 games with Burrow and this crew.
Okay.
I think 9 games would be fantastic. Like if they could turn it around this year and get 9 wins and be in the playoff conversation, even if they didn't make it at 9-7, I think for a lot of fans that would just breathe so much excitement and vigor into everyone. And I think that's desperately what we need. So I just hope we can at least get within sort of a game of 500. I just don't want us this year desperately to not just flail out and be sort of 2, 3, 4 wins. I mean, and when you transition like that and you've got a rookie quarterback and you make a lot of changes, you obviously got the impact of the coronavirus, no fans, these things can happen. And obviously, we're coming from a bad point from last season, but if we can be competitive this year with Joe Burrow and these new free agents, it'll be a very exciting time, I think.
3 big things. 3 big things that were not there in 11. The coronavirus, you just said. Who's going to be available from week to week? The offensive line was a veteran solid crew in 2011, and in the division, Baltimore is clearly the best team in the AFC. If it's not Kansas City, and that was not the division was a lot closer in 11, and I don't think it's talented as it is now. I mean. I think Cleveland is better now than Cleveland was in 11, and Pittsburgh's always dangerous with Ben. So those are 3 pretty big differences from, that they're fighting too. So, I agree. I mean, anything could happen. I think you're right, Nate. You don't want to see 2-14, 3-13, and 4-12.
And yet, what records did the Bengals have before each season when they went to the Super Bowl?
Well, that's right. That's a good point. It's
anything can happen. That's basically what I'm saying. It's unlikely, but anything can happen.
That's well said, Paul. Right, I guess 6-10 and 4-11, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. Geoff, thank you so much as ever. In the past, we've asked you to do all sorts on this podcast, and we're going to ask you to do something again. So apologies. You're a good sport, and over the past 3 or 4 weeks, we've been playing a game called First and 10, and I believe that you've agreed to play along with this. Is that correct?
That might be
a chance to get out of it, basically.
My decision making might not be as good as Burrow's on that one.
Okay, Geoff Hobson, let's play First and 10. Now, the rules are, as I stated earlier, you start on your own 20. You have 12 questions to score a touchdown. Okay? And each question, you can choose 3 options. One is a 5-yard pass or run up the middle, and that is an easy question. The next question choice is a medium question, which takes you 10 yards, or you can choose a very hard question, and that gets you a touchdown immediately. A long, raking Greg Cook pass down the sidelines, just like the old days, to Bob Trumpy. So let's give it a go, shall we? Okay, First and 10 at your own 20. Which kind of question you go for? Difficult, easy, or moderate?
Easy. Let's start off a little handoff to Mixon.
Okay. What number does Joe Burrow wear?
Oh, 9. Okay.
There you go. So now it's I've got to write this down, actually, so I don't lose track. 2nd and 5 from your 25.
I'll have to go intermediate.
What substance is Han Solo frozen in during Empire Strikes Back?
I'm gonna peanut butter. I got no shot.
Okay, that's 3rd and 5 from your 25. It's question 3. What are you going to go for? You could get a first down with an easy question here.
Yeah, I
Jeff.
got to go easy. Got to go easy
Okay,
here. Yeah.
All right, okay. And this one is especially for you, Jeff. Which city is the capital of Massachusetts?
Boston.
There you go. And a first down.
Yes.
First and 10. Question 4. What's it going to be? You're at your own 30.
I'll go the intermediate, I guess. I'll try to go.
Okay, he's going for a cheeky little first down straight away. Which Christian celebration is influenced by the Passover?
Christian. I guess Catholicism.
No, I was looking for the actual celebration. That is Good Friday.
Oh, the actual celebration. Okay, jeez, yeah, wow,
Jeff, man.
Let's go back to the. Let's go back
to the.
I'm killing your Zoom here. This is a grinding drive.
Which U.S. I'm hoping you're going to open the playbook up in a minute, Jeff. But which U.S. president resigned over the Watergate scandal?
Richard Nixon.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's now 3rd and 5 on question 6.
Okay, I got to go for first.
35-yard line.
Yeah, I got to go with another easy one there.
Okay, all right. Who wrote the play, The Merchant of Venice?
That'd be your guy, Shakespeare.
Correct. So you're at your own 40. This is question 7. What are you going to go for? Just to let you know,
I'm going for the whole ball of wax right now. I'm going play action. Burrow to AJ down the sideline.
Okie dokie. The companies HP, Microsoft, and Apple were all started in a what?
Warehouse.
Almost. It's a garage or garage.
I'd have got that.
You would have got that, Nathan.
I'd have got that, yeah.
All right, 2nd and 10 from the 40. Question 8.
Intermediate. Because I only got 4 more questions, right? So.
Yeah, right. Okay, according to Greek mythology, I know you're big on this, Jeff.
Yeah. I am a myth myself.
Who was the goddess of beauty?
That would have been Aphrodite.
You are correct.
Good shout.
You are at midfield.
That was.
And you're on question 9.
Okay, that was. Give me another intermediate, please.
Okay, he's got the taste for the intermediates now. Which Danish writer is known as the most prolific creator of fairy tales?
Hans Christian Andersen?
Correct. 1st and 10, question 10. The offense is picking up pace. And
Field goal range here. Field goal range.
So, yeah, question 10, 1st and 10 from the opponent's 40.
The intermediate.
You've got 2 questions left, Jeff. So.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I got to go. Okay. I guess I'll go for it all right here.
Okay. All right then.
I don't want to get into a Hail Mary
Jeff
situation.
Blake, he can see Carl Pickens.
Hail Mary.
Question 10. What was the highest selling album of the 1980s?
Oh. I'm going to say, it's Elvis Costello, but I don't...
Pray not. It's Thriller by Michael Jackson.
Oh, I should have got that. Jeez.
Let's
keep going for the long ball.
You've got 1 question left, Jeff. Oh, no, that was question 10. So you got question 11 and question 12. So you're going to go for it all again?
Yep.
Okay. Actually, you might get this question. In 2018, the family of which Hall of Fame linebacker settled a wrongful death lawsuit against the NFL?
Junior Seau.
Correct, and a touchdown. There it is. Geoff Hobson, 11 questions from the 40.
I apologize for that grinding drive. That's
all right. Well, I
should have known a Star Wars was coming. You were gonna. You like Star Wars, don't you?
I do. Yes, I'm a big fan of Star Wars. Well, Jeff, congratulations. Well done. Thank you again for joining us. It's always a treat to. Well, we can see you because we're doing this by Zoom. So thank you.
No, thank you.
I have no idea what the season's going to look like, but I just hope that you stay safe and we can get some games and we can, cheer the team on from over here.
Same to you, Paul. Thank you. Thanks for. I know the team is thankful for your support, as I am. Thanks for all the interest over there, and thank you for the help you've done with the site over there. You and Nate, I can't thank you enough. Guys, stay safe. The best to you and your families, and let's talk soon.
Back at you, Geoff. You take care. Cheers, then.
Thanks so much, Geoff. Love having you on, man. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Well, there we go. That was good old Uncle Geoff. What a sport he was. And I'm delighted that he managed to score a touchdown in 1st and 10.
Indeed. I literally do love Geoff. He's one of my favourite guests on the podcast. Gives a really good quality insight. And I'm thankful. 6th time on the podcast, outrageous as well. So a massive credit and a massive thanks to good old Geoff.
And he said he was very positive. He kind of thought that this season could mirror Andy Dalton's 2011 season, which is a big ask, but I can see where he's coming from.
Well, certainly when he dialed it up on the paper like that, you could see where he was coming from, and it made quite a lot of sense. And it is a funny one because you think back to not last season, but the season before, and that was a season the Bengals really felt like they could do something, coming off the back of, still with Marvin there, they really felt like they could win games. And obviously the start of that season was super positive, and we were like 5-2 or whatever it was, and then it all fell apart, and then that was the end of Marvin. And then Zach Taylor came in, and a lot of people still felt like last season could be really competitive. There were some really good pieces there. And again, for the second year in a row, injuries completely derailed us, and it was a bit of a mess. But a lot of those players are still there, and like I said, touch wood, we're pretty healthy. So there is certainly some talent on this team, certainly on paper. You go through the team, and I hope this is not just us being naive as fans, but like Geoff said, there is a lot of talent. There's AJ Green, there's Geno Atkins, there's Carlos Dunlap, there's Carl Lawson, who everyone's been talking about as a potential Pro Bowler for years in terms of his ceiling ability. So you've obviously got Joe Burrow now. There are some really good bloody players. And if they can mesh and play well, then, who knows why we couldn't have a season like we did.
Oh, who knows, Nathan? It's here. We could do it. Come on. That's a bold prediction.
Mate, we're going to win it all.
We're going to do it.
14-2.
Bloody hell. Imagine if we got to the Super Bowl, man.
14-2.
No,
and then just march to the Super Bowl.
No, what if we scraped in the playoffs at 9-7? Like went
or
to
8-8, or so disgraceful. Got in at 8-8,
or 7-9, scraped in. Really, really, just in the dirty back entrance, and the filthiest slip into the playoffs you've ever sort of seen.
Like lost 3 games in a row, yet somehow snuck in at 7
and just
9.
Basically the whole NFL disrespects the hell out of us because we did that. And then we go into Houston, our nemesis in the playoffs in recent years, turn those guys over in Houston, then go on the road to, let me think now, the Ravens, another kind of interdivisional playoff biff-boff, and we managed to do them over, and then we roll into Kansas City, and Geno takes out Mahomes, 4-5 sacks, and then we're in the Super Bowl. Who are we playing in the Super Bowl, Nathan? Who are your Super Bowl tips in all reality?
I think you might have a good shout with Dallas, to be honest, son. I think there's something about Dallas that they've been sort of there or thereabouts for years, haven't they? And they've got some quality players in Prescott, and they've got some, obviously, Ezekiel Elliott and some quality wide receivers. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think you've got a good shout there. I think New Orleans are always good, but Drew Brees is knocking on a bit, and I'm not convinced by the Bucks. I think they could be a bit of a wet fish this year.
A wet fish. Ooh.
There's too many personalities on that Browns team for me. Like Gronkowski, you've got like Bruce Arians, you've got obviously they've just brought in Leonard Fournette.
I think that might be a good pickup, because I know he's a bit of a nightmare. But
it's a big personalities on that team, though, isn't there?
It's interesting, I think. Saints and Bucks, maybe. Panthers, nah.
No.
Who else? Falcons are always a bit kind of worth an eye on. You never know what they're going to be. They've got some quality
Yeah,
players.
it's a bit mad, the Falcons, aren't they? They turn up and smack someone one week and then get smacked the next.
Yeah, the Bears, Trubisky is named starting quarterback, but your old mate Bill Lazor is offensive coordinator. Good
Mate,
defense.
what a recipe
but,
that is. Bill Lazor and Trubisky. I certainly wouldn't be betting a huge amount on that.
Green Bay look about the same. They're going to be there or thereabouts, I guess. The Lions signed Adrian Peterson, and who knows what, maybe they'll improve a little bit. The Vikings will be solid again. I mean, I'm not going to name every team in the NFL, but there's some intriguing prospects out there. What about from the AFC? You said Dallas. What about from the AFC? You can't really look past Kansas City because I think they've retained a lot of players and they've added some nice players in the draft as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's hard to look past them. I think it's always hard to look past the Ravens based on what they did last season. I'm not convinced by the Steelers, and I wouldn't wish injuries on any player, but I think Big Ben's going to struggle again this year. I mean, he's another year on. He's been an incredible player, as much as I hate to say that, throughout his years. But I just seriously question his durability, especially with no preseason and stuff like that. Like, is he going to be up to taking this many hits in his sort of late 30s? I'm not sure he's going to be knocking around for the whole season for the Steelers, which will be a concern to them. I'm not convinced by the Browns, to be honest.
Why not? Because they've got all the talent. They've got Myles Garrett. They've got Odell Beckham. They drafted a good-looking tackle. They've picked up a good-looking tackle in free agency. They've got old Chubbers in the backfield. They've got old Baker behind centre, or under centre rather. Stefanski's come in. He's got to be better than Freddie Kitchens. They've got some nice pieces on there. Why not the Browns? Why not this year for the Browns?
I think the Browns will probably win 6 or 7 games. I just think whenever you change head coach in that first season and you change a lot of players around and you never have the consistency, I just think it's not good for anyone. It's really difficult to sort of get a grip for the scheme they're trying to run, get a grip for the culture they're trying to create. Every coach comes in, wants to run it their certain way, have their certain type of players. They've got a certain way they do meetings, got a certain playbook they like to do. And I just think Baker Mayfield as well has had a lot of head coaches. I mean, you think he had Hugh Jackson back in the day, then Kitchens. Now he's already got onto his third head coach. I never think too many personalities are a good thing in a locker room. You obviously got Beckham, you got him. I just don't see. I think with the Browns, it's a bit like the Bengals, to be honest. Like, they've got to prove you wrong before you give them any respect. We get a lot of shit around the league, and I think that really annoys a lot of Bengals fans, thinking, why are we always getting disrespected? But you've got to knock some playoff wins together. You've got to you've got to win a lot of games. You've got to win primetime games. You've got to earn that respect when people are watching. And I think that's the same for the Browns. No one's going to go out there saying they're going to win the division or win 10 games, regardless of if they've got, Barry Sanders in his prime playing for them, because at the end of the day, they haven't done it before. So I think that's the issue for the Browns. But I mean, they're going to be competitive. You look at the talent on that team, and there's no reason they shouldn't be. So I think the AFC North is going to be fascinating this year.
Yeah, it's going to be really tight, isn't it?
It is going to be a tight division. And I think as much as the Ravens are like the big favourites, it would only take Lamar Jackson to have a bit of a stinker or to go down with an injury or whatever else, and that division's wide open again. So I think this year especially, it could be closer than it has been in a long time.
Or let me add, teams have found out Lamar Jackson. They might have found some. I mean, he's a great player. He's great to watch. I know he's a divisional rival, but I do like Lamar. The Bills may well end up winning the AFC East this year. The Pats
for the first time in the last century.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is true. The Pats, it'd be interesting with Cam Newton under centre. It's going to be a really intriguing season. Again, it's going to be all over the place. So stick with us throughout.
Last point, Sam.
Go on.
Last point. Who do you think of teams, because there are always teams like this every year, like we were last year. Who do you think are the real dud teams out there this year that are going to win 2-3 games? I mean, I think most people would say Jacksonville. I think Miami are going to struggle seriously again.
Yeah,
I just think it's
so.
crazy that they've got Ryan Fitzpatrick starting again at quarterback at his ripe old age. I just don't see that as a positive move forward for them. But who else do you? I mean, there are obviously two AFC teams. Are there any other teams that look a bit wobbly to you?
Well, it's always the case during the season. And if teams get off to a bad start, it's really difficult to come back from that. Like, really difficult, because the confidence goes, the coach loses the locker room, whatever it might be, the fans turn against them, whatever. And I agree with Miami, and I agree certainly with Jacksonville, which is weird when you think only a couple of years ago they looked primed for a long run at the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're definitely tanking, I think, which has got to be quite dispiriting to their fans. Who would be really dreadful? I mean, Washington.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
I mean, just from everything that's happened off the field, really.
That's a good shout.
And, obviously Ron Rivera is battling cancer, which is a real, an awful situation for him. But I believe he intends to carry on coaching. And he's a good coach, he's taking the team to a Super Bowl. But, with the players that they've got and all the off-the-field stuff, it's going to be difficult for them to turn that around. What about the Giants? They're a bit of an unknown quantity. The Bears might do badly, although their defense is good.
The Lions are always a bit on the risk of having a shit season. I mean, Matt Stafford's one of those absolutely maddening players where he's obviously got all the talent and he's first-round pick and first overall pick, and I love watching him. I think he's a very exciting player, big arm, makes some big plays, but
inconsistent.
But yeah, he is, and the Lions just never can put it together. They're always all right, but I don't know. You just think with someone that talented, it's crazy to me they've not had more success.
No, I agree. All right, here's an outside one for you. Philadelphia. How about that?
To be shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think. They could be good. I think they're about an 8-8, 9-7 team again. But I don't know. I don't know what it is about them. I think their skill players, the standard of their skill players has gone down. You never know about Carson Wentz. The defense is always tough, but apparently they got a load of injuries. So I'm going to say the Eagles.
There we go.
So there we go. We're talking about that. It's now your turn, everybody. We asked everyone to throw in their predictions, and they got in touch with us on Twitter at @2day_UK and Facebook, Bengals UK, and Bengals UK now on YouTube. Oh yes. And there were loads, so we better get to them, Nathan, or else we're going to be here all night. So Duncan at SlamDunk the Funk.
Solid handle.
Is Nathan finally on the Joe Mixon train? Loving the latest content updates and really hyped for Sunday when we destroy the Chargers. Winning season incoming, and don't be surprised if we scrape the playoffs. Playing devil's advocate, what happens if we only win 4 to 5 games this season, but we are still close in the games? Do you persevere with Zach for one more year? Yeah, I would. I just think these are just such unprecedented circumstances. His leash would be a lot thinner, I think, and his seats would be getting warmer for sure. But I'd certainly give him another year.
To answer Duncan's question, I'm not on the train yet. I might have a look at the ticket prices if he starts playing well in the first few weeks when we're actually involved in some competitive games. I think if Taylor wins 4 games or less, unless there's like the games are mad close and we're really unfortunate and they're like nail biters and stuff, I think he'd be on the outside looking in. I just don't think you can win 6 games or less in 2 years and not be in serious trouble. And I think the Bengals have always been very patient with members of staff, and obviously with the injuries and the situation this season and starting a rookie quarterback, he'd have certainly a defense case there. But I think if he wins 4 or less games, he'd be on the outside looking in for me. And I think the fans would be pretty irate.
Jamie at Trequiet Beaster, mega hyped for the season now. It's like Christmas week for me. What are your plans about how to watch this season but keep relatively sane waking hours? Any sleep hacks? I've always been a big believer in a nap. And I like taking a nap anyway. But certainly in the season, you've got to be quite strategic. I would have one, for instance, if it's a prime time game. I'm not really one for staying up for prime time games anymore. I just can't. I just don't function too well the next day. I need my sleep, and so certainly on a late night game or even a later game, if I'm staying up till like 12:30 or 1 or whatever, then it has to be a kind of a 20-minute nap to kind of take the edge off any tiredness. Don't eat too late, I think. Although I do like actually scrap that. Forget it. I'm a snack hoover when the games take place. Have you got any hacks? I bet you just power through, Nathan, don't you?
No, I've over the years, because I always stay up for the late games, unfortunately, and I've watched Bengals games across bloody different time zones in Europe. I've watched a game in a betting shop in Belgrade at 4 a.m. with a pint, so I'm well used to these sort of late night games. But I've always found that the best thing to do is go to bed about 11. Set your alarm for literally 1:29 for when the game's about to start.
Yeah.
Wake up and you're like, right, bloody, I've had 2.5 hours kit. Watch the game, go back to bed, and then obviously set your alarm for whatever time you need to be up. That normally gives you about 6 hours sleep, and you feel a bit shit the next day. But at least then you've got something under your belt. I know this sounds boring, but for the late night, those games in the middle of the night, I don't drink at all. You can't. That's the one thing I'd say as a tip. Don't drink when you're watching those games, because you don't want to hang over on top of the lack of sleep.
Yeah.
It's just not a good combo.
And if you stop drinking about 4, half 4, and you have to get up for work at say 7, half 7, the chances are you're still going to be drunk, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and
Bengals UK, we don't advocate drink driving or drinking at work, my son, do we?
No, we do not. Pete Dadswell at Dadders. You can only have 2 of these on Sunday. Take your pick. Number 1, Burrow throws 1 TD. Number 2, Mixon runs in 1 TD. 3, Green finds the end zone. 4, new defense has 2 turnovers. 5, the O-line gives up no sacks and no false starts. I mean, it's got to be Burrow throws a TD. That's what we're all looking for. A Joe Boy touchdown pass on Sunday to settle him down and to get his career in Cincinnati going. The other one is...
But son, don't you be fooled there. You're being fooled by Dadders there.
Why?
If you take AJ Green touchdown, that's getting 2 birds with 1 stone, because it's going to be thrown by Joe.
That's a good shout. That's a really good shout, Nathan. Number 3 kills 2 birds. So let's go with number 3. And it's a toss-up for me between the new defense has 2 turnovers and the offensive line gives up no sacks. Because if the O-line gives up no sacks against Bosa and Ingram, they'll have had a very good day indeed. But I'm going to edge for the defense having 2 turnovers. Because, again, there's plenty of new pieces, and I want to see them settle quickly.
I'm taking 4 and 5. I'm taking the O-line not giving up any sacks, which would be an extraordinary achievement, like you said. And then I'm taking the D-line, or the defense getting 2 turnovers. I think if you get 2 turnovers in that game and don't give up any sacks, you're more than likely win it.
Shawnee at Shawnee01. I'm stupidly optimistic about Sunday. I think we're going to absolutely overwhelm them. 38-14 win. One of their touchdowns is a pick 6, as Joe is bound to make a mistake or 2. And yes, loving the optimism, Sean, but I think you make a really good point there right at the end. Joe will make mistakes. And this is what we've got to be understanding of and tolerant of. It's not going to be perfect straight away. So yeah, that's just something to to
Do you not
think
think Joe
about.
Burrow? Joe Burrow's like one of these girls you've met on like Tinder or some like
What
online
are you
dating
talking
website,
about?
and you're looking at it and you're like, it's some absolutely stunning, like beautiful blonde woman who's got an incredible job and she's super well educated and really funny and like he's a 10 out of 10. You just can't believe your luck.
Yeah.
And then you meet her and she might be slightly underwhelming because he's a bloody rookie. He's probably going to throw a few pick sixes this season. He's going to have some games where he throws for less than 200 yards. And he's going to have games when we sit there and we say, actually, he was shit. But I feel like, people are so excited about the geezer. I mean, I can't tell my Twitter icons from each other at the moment. Every geezer, every Bengals fan is just a picture of Joe Boy.
I know.
So, I'm excited. I can't wait to see Joe. But, I mean, I don't think there's ever been, since I've been a Bengals fan, more hype around one player ever.
Yeah,
ever.
that kind of worries me a little bit. Just, I don't know. Just temper that expectation, I would say. Rosie at Rosie_May16. I honestly have no idea how this game could go. There has been so much change, but I think if we can win this first game, it will set us up a lot better for the season. The confidence from the win could do a lot. I agree.
Fully agree with that. That is a really good point.
Kevin Jarvis at Kevin J. Jarvis. I can't wait for the new season to start. I have a great feeling we will do well this year. Thank you, Kevin. Jazz at J. Dylan J. We are a lot better on both sides of the ball this year when compared to the last. But with Burrow in his rookie year and an extremely tough division, I will say 5 to 6 wins. Okay, so Jazz is erring on the side of caution there. I tell you what, let's bring in our final little montage of Bengals fans clips.
Hey, I'm Perrin, I'm from Cornwall, I've been a Bengals fan for 15 years. This season I'm mainly looking forward to seeing how Burrow can link up with our receiving core, how exciting that looks. Prediction for this coming season, I'll be happy anything really between 6 and 8 wins really. Nice steady progression, no major injuries, and look to go forward from there. Who dey?
Rory here, big Bengals fan from North Yorkshire, excited for the 2020 season kickoff. Bengals still have some issues on the O-line in the secondary. I think Joe Burrow can overcome that. Zach Taylor's second year, I think we'll see some green shoots appear in a tough AFC North. My prediction is 8-8 this year, followed by a run at the postseason in the 2021-22 season.
Hey Who Dey UK fans, it's Andy Cleanup from Cambridge, just checking in with a quick van video, wearing my Turk Schonert jersey. Listen, the thing I'm looking forward to most this year is actually rooting for the Bengals to win, because that kind of sucked last year, hoping they'd lose so they could Burrow. But we've got him now, and that last game of the season was fantastic. So looking forward, of course, to seeing Joe play, crossing my fingers that the offensive line holds up. But yeah, just really looking forward to cheering hard for the Bengals, and hopefully we can sneak into the playoffs this year. My prediction is a 9-7 wild card season. Take care. Good day.
So a big thank you to Perrin Robson, Rory Joe Daniels and Andy Kalina there. And thanks to everyone who sent in their predictions. Let's get back to our correspondences. Killian at Molloy_00. Conservatively thinking a 6-10 season. We have a decent 53-man roster if we can keep everyone healthy, get off to a good start. I'd like to think we could maybe push towards a wild card. 2020 has been a crazy year, so it might not be too bizarre to think we could do well this year. Well, there we go. There's a nice bit of positivity for you. Duncan Price at Dastardly Duncan.
Solid handle.
I'm going for a 6-10 record, and not because I think we'll be bad. I just don't think we're there yet. I think we'll see flashes of Burrow, but the O-line is still a bit of weakness. and it's going to be hard coming in as a rookie after this stilted off-season. And Duncan is on his long run-up, so he continues. I think we're still iffy in the secondary too. No Waynes, WJ3 needs to kick on, as does Bates. Bailey's great in the box, but his coverage is questionable. Let's hope a more aggressive D-line brings the standard of the whole defense up to scratch. I see injuries playing a key part this year. I do think if any of the other 3 QBs go down long term, we could perhaps hit 8-8. And then, who knows? Reasons to be excited and optimistic for sure. VB at Von Blade.
Solid handle.
How many terrible punny headlines has Geoff already got written? Burrowing into first place. No ordinary Joe. Argument over walking through sticky weeds descends into Burrow. What? I didn't get the last one. Come on, cut Geoff a bit of slack. He is a fine headline writer there, Von. Man Abelhosen at Man Abelhosen. Surprised they only claimed 1 player after the final cuts. Is the back end of the roster set? Or do we expect a few more moves over the next couple of weeks? I'm not sure about deadlines and such, man. I was surprised they didn't go for anyone a little bit more high profile. Prince Amukamara is out there.
I completely agree with that. I was very surprised about Calhoun. I mean, there was no other claims placed on him, so we were the only team to actually stick a claim in on him. So it doesn't really matter if we've been first or 31st. It wouldn't have made a great deal of difference. But yeah, I was really surprised. I was hopeful for Rosen, and maybe to see if there was anyone else that's like you said, a slightly higher profile, or maybe a draft pick that had been cut that didn't make the roster somewhere, or a player that was sort of people were trying to sneak onto their practice squad or something like that. But I guess the guy's got some experience. I think a lot of Dolphins fans I saw when we claimed we picked him up, were saying, laughing, saying, oh, why would they pick him up? Why would they pick him up? But the guy was undrafted. He made the roster last year. He played some games. A young lad. So give him the benefit of the doubt. He's a young lad. He can improve. And obviously someone there at the Bengals has seen something they like about him. So fingers crossed.
Dom at Bungling Bengal.
Solid handle.
Hey guys, hope you're doing well. What do you reckon the odds of Joey beating Baker's rookie TD record? It seems fairly doable in my opinion. P.S. Fantastic job with the live stream last night. Can't wait for many more to come. We'll tell you a bit what's going to come in a few moments, Dom, but I think there's every chance,
Yeah, I mean, again, we don't want to hype the boy up too much, but you never know, do you? He's got a good supporting cast. He's got AJ Green, he's got John Ross, he's got Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, I'm sure, will play a part there. Tyler Boyd, of course. So there's some really dangerous geezers on that field. If CJ's armour can play well as well and give him that sort of threat across
Drew
the middle,
Sample
then
coming to fruition.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously that line is, again, that line is healthy. So you've obviously got Trey Hopkins, we know, is a good player, and Jonah Williams, that first-round pick, top 10 first-round pick, gets his first chance to show what he's got. Bobby Hart be another year on, and I think Bobby Hart, to his credit, well, I'm not going to say that too much, but was better last year than he was the previous year. So if he can take another step forward as well, then that line, if that line can at least be bloody average, that's what we've got to be open for. Yeah. So if that falls into place and the offense can drill up some good plays and put together some good schemes, there's no reason why Joe Burrow couldn't have a knock at that record, but we don't want to run before we walk.
Exactly. Ross at Burrow to AJ. I'll be happy with 5 or 6 wins. Best case, maybe 8-8. If anything, I think it'll be very exciting, though. That's what we're all hoping for, Ross. Some excitement, some competitiveness, and yeah, we'll see what happens after that. And finally, Nick Parks at Big Parks 71.
Solid handle.
I would love to see us tear it up, but I think other teams have more maturity and in depth. I think we should get at least 7 wins, which means we may get a sniff of postseason football. I think that confirms everything and encapsulates everything that we've said, Nick. I think that's what we're going for. I think, imagine just going into December and we're still in with a shout for the playoffs. That could happen.
That's what you want as well.
Yeah, you want to be relevant
in
December, don't you? Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's been the problem. Really, is we haven't been competitive since that year that I was talking about earlier in the episode. I always remember that game against Pittsburgh, 5-2, and Joe Mixon ran one in with less than 2 minutes left, and the Bengals succumbed to an Antonio Brown touchdown. I always remember then that felt like, God, if we could have got to 6-2 that year or whatever it was, then that year could have been so different. We may have gone a lot further than we ended up going, whereas it all sort of fell off a cliff. But I just really want to be competitive. Last year was really hard. It really, really was. It was barely watchable at times. And I just hope, like people have been saying, that if there's even a sniff of postseason football in November and December, and the games mean something, I mean, that's going to be a massive blessing. So fingers crossed.
I agree with all that. And with that, that's the end of our season prediction episode. As we mentioned, we launched our YouTube channel last week. We've thrown out our fan video for 2020, which has got everyone hyped up, which is great. And so do tell friends who are new to the NFL, who are looking for teams to support, come and support the Bengals. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. And I hope they'll be introduced to an inclusive, friendly, welcoming fan community. And dare I say it, and I think I do, it's one of the best fan communities out there in the UK. So do tell them, spread the word. Show them the video, and whatever happens, we'll have a lot of fun this season. Going forward, we will be continuing our online tailgates, and dare I say it, and I think I do, we were the first ones ever to. I think it was genuinely a world first, Nathan, when we started our online I'm being serious. Online tailgates last year, and what we're going to be doing this year, we're going to take them onto YouTube. So we still want to see your pictures and videos and all the rest of it, but you're going to see them in an online tailgate show. We're going to have lots of guests and Bengals fans from around the UK contributing. It'll be an hour each Sunday, unless it's a primetime game. We're slightly earlier this year. We're going to start at 4:30, so watch out for them. We're going to be starting this Sunday, our first online tailgate of the season, so do join us. I'm out of breath. I'm knackered with all the activity and the flurry of news and roster cuts and all the excitement, so I'm going to bid you farewell. It's here, everybody. The next time we speak, we will be reviewing the Chargers game next Monday. So, it is a hoo-day from me.
And a hoo-day from me. Cheers, guys.
And it should also be noted that the views and opinions expressed within this podcast do not reflect those of the Cincinnati Bengals organisation.